Hello, Carrie. Hello, everybody. So, I'm afraid that with this next expansion, the end of Talisman is coming. The end of the world is nigh. Well, not really. But this next expansion that we're covering is the Harbinger Expansion. So, as usual, we'll start with the characters, because who doesn't love the characters, new ways to play, and that sort of thing. So, there are 3 of them. So the first one that we've got is the Celestial. Look at those angelic wings. We've got the Ascendant Divine. And lastly, not gonna lie, this figure is looking a little crazy. We've got the Possessed. Look at that giant arm. And all the detail that goes into it. It's insane. And then, of course, much like the Reaper expansion and the Blood Moon expansion, we have the main star of our show, the Harbinger himself. Oh yes. We've also got 10 terrain cards. We've got 10 spell cards. We've also got 75 Harbinger cards, which I'll get into later on. And in total, we have 32 of these omen cards. In addition to all of that, we've also got 2 alternate endings. We've got the Armageddon Crown. Now, you've probably seen this type of alternate ending before in my previous videos, how there's no symbol here. It essentially means that you can use this card either as a hidden ending or as an alternate ending that is revealed. So you can kind of pick and choose which one you want to use this one as. Whereas this, the End of Days, is a revealed ending. Remember, it's the sun logo that indicates that it's a revealed ending. And that this card sits face up in the center of the board where everybody can see, so that way everybody knows the way to strategize and to meet the requirements for the end conditions in order to win the game. Because the Harbinger expansion is themed around the end of the world, there is so much going on with each of the components that I had shown earlier. Now first, like I've always mentioned with my previous videos, and it's the same with this expansion. If you only want to use portions of it, maybe you're not entirely interested in everything that the Harbinger covers, you can use the characters and or the 2 alternate endings instead of everything else. But now, let's get into what exactly the Harbinger expansion encompasses. We're going to keep the Celestial here for us, just to use as our example. Now, I didn't show this before, but the Harbinger also has his own chart, much like the Werewolf and the Reaper. So it just simply goes on the side of the board. Now the question is, generally, with the Reaper, he starts over there at the Portal Tower, and the Werewolf starts over there in the forest. What about our Harbinger friend? Well, in all actuality, he hangs out on his card. And then we have simply the Harbinger deck can just sit right beside it. And at the beginning of the game, we pick out of these 4 right here which set of omen cards we're going to use. Now, when it comes to the omen cards, there are 8 cards total. It's always going to start with the prophecy card. It's got a lot of text that you can read. And then it's going to have 7 levels that go underneath it. Of course, each different set of omen cards is going to have a different theme. So this is the Shattered World, and it's going to more so focus on the actual change of the terrain. We have the end of the world, Armageddon, which is going to theme, of course, around the end of the world, as the Harbinger starts to become worse. We have Stars Align, which is essentially about the collapse of magic. And then we have the Rise of the Dead, where things start returning from the grave, and things start to become more dangerous because they started to make their return. So, after the Harbinger is placed on his card, and you've set up your Harbinger deck, then the 10 spell cards get shuffled into the rest of the spell deck that we've already encompassed. And then if you're playing with the Firelands expansion, much like if you haven't seen that video already, I would definitely recommend it. You merge these 10 terrain cards in there too. Because like the Firelands expansion, there's going to be conditions within the Harbinger expansion that are going to change the actual spaces themselves. So this is just an example of one of the terrain cards. So when it's on a space, like before, because the theme is the end of the world, it's always going to change and shift the way that the actual spaces work. So with this necropolis here on top of the graveyard, you only listen to the instructions that are on top of the necropolis and not the graveyard itself, because it's no longer there. The terrain cards replaced it. Also, like with the Firelands, if it's on the Sentinel, there's no Sentinel there, so there's free passage into the middle region. And if it's on the Portal of Power, there's free passage into the inner region. But now, let's get into the rest of this. So, after you've picked which one of these 4 omen sets that you use, you're of course going to reveal, well, this one's not in the right order. You're always going to reveal the prophecy card, so we'll just use this Armageddon one as an example. So the prophecy card is revealed. The game operates as normal, so you roll, you move, you encounter that sort of thing. Nothing really happens right away. However, at any time that any events are drawn, of course this is one from the Harbinger deck, but any events in general, wherever that character was that drew that event, Harbinger now comes onto the board. And here's why he starts to become a problem. So, of course, the danger of the Harbinger is a bit more alleviated when you got the 4 corners in play, but right now, with just these 3 layers, the entire outer region is completely affected by the Harbinger, meaning that as we, as the Sentinel, travel around the board and we're drawing cards, we're no longer drawing from the adventure cards. We are instead drawing from these Harbinger cards. And let me tell you, every single card in here for the Harbinger deck all has a bunch of bad caveats, or just cards that you don't want to carry. So for example, there's this beast here. And as you can see, he's ridiculously crafty and ridiculously strong, with a strength/craft of 18. If you don't remember, the slash remark means that you fight it either with strength or with craft. There are plenty of enemies inside the Harbinger deck that have this sort of thing, and all the enemies in the Harbinger deck have conditions in which generally things don't go well. And the Harbinger, pretty much, as of right now, is completely stuck onto the board. So if we're in the middle region and we draw an event, then Harbinger moves from wherever he was to the same location, and only the middle region is affected by Harbinger cards. The reason that this is bad is because there are specific cards that discard the omens. Now, of course, there's, like I said, there's 7 omens that you get through. Whenever an omen is discarded, Harbinger comes off the board and back onto his card. Things go back to normal. However, if you manage to get through all 7 of these omens, each of which has their own set of unveiling conditions and conditions while the omen is active, if you manage to get through all 7 of these and you draw one more, everybody loses the game because the world has essentially ended. Now, another important thing regarding the Harbinger deck. There's also a keyword concept inside of the Harbinger deck that are known as cursed. Followers, objects, certain places might have this cursed word up here. Meaning that above anything else, you have to take the cursed objects or followers or any of the Harbinger cards that say that they are cursed. So if you manage to get a load of objects from the Harbinger deck and they all say cursed, but they exceed your carrying limit, you have to sacrifice your current objects and replace them with cursed objects because you have no choice but to take them. So that can definitely suck. So essentially, another side note that I almost forgot to mention when it comes to the Harbinger deck. Because the Harbinger deck is not the adventure deck, characters like the Prophetess cannot replace Harbinger cards with new Harbinger cards to encounter. So, for example, if the Beast is what the Prophetess drew, she cannot replace that Harbinger card for a new one which she has to encounter. These cards are inevitable when they show up. There's absolutely nothing that she can do against them. The Orb of Knowledge can't do anything against these Harbinger cards. So that is definitely something else, if the Prophetess is your main character, that you want to take into consideration. Is that her ability to avoid dangers with the Harbinger cards is something that she can't really do. Now, when the Harbinger is in play, let's say we're right here, there is a way to get rid of him off the board. If you manage to land and roll high enough to get back to him, you have the ability to pick up the Harbinger and move him essentially to anywhere of the other regions. Meaning, if you want to put him in the Highlands, you can do that. You want to put him in the city, you can do that. You want to put him in the dungeon, you want to put him in the woodlands, you can do that. Or from the outer and the middle region. Note that the Harbinger, much like the Reaper or the Werewolf, cannot get into the inner region. So that is the one place that you are safe from him. Once you decide where he's going to go, to where he's no longer affecting you, then you consult the Harbinger's chart, you roll a die, and then one of these 6 things will happen. So overall, with the capabilities of being able to move the Harbinger, trying to avoid the Harbinger deck, the 4 different sets of omens that each have their own central theme, the 10 terrain cards that will constantly shift the battlefield and the actual board itself, where different strategies might become more or less effective because certain spaces will come and go, with the 10 spell cards, the 2 alternate endings, and the 3 characters, again, the Harbinger expansion itself is probably the hardest small box and also has the most stakes. So strategy-wise, you definitely want to keep an eye on what omen level you are at with the Harbinger, because again, if you go through all 8 omen cards and you have to discard 1 more, everybody loses the game, because the world has essentially ended. So hopefully that this video is going to be very helpful to you. We've only got 3 more expansions left to cover, which I definitely believe will require a lot bigger and a lot more in-depth dive into what they encompass, because I consider these next 3 expansions to be game-changing, as they literally change the way that the board looks, it changes the way that you interact, it changes the way that the turn order is gonna happen, and the sequence of events that you have to go through on your very specific outline as far as turn priority. I'm telling you, these next 3 are really going to change everything. But overall, hopefully you found this Harbinger expansion tutorial to be very helpful. And let me know if this is something that interests you.